morning. Today's video is going to be a bit of a head scratcher. It's probably going to bring up more questions than it answers. So the first question I'm going to come up with, and the main topic of the video really, is do oil pastels go out of date? If you Google and say do oil pastels go out of date, they will say on there, technically, oil pastels do not go out of date. Well, that don't tell me nothing, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. It's suggesting that they don't go out of date, but that word technically could mean they do go out of date. Technically they don't go out of date, but technically they do go out of date. And if they're saying technically, then there must be a suggestion that they do go out of date. Sorry, told you it'd be a head scratcher. Anyway, so that word technically could mean either. Could mean yes they do or no they don't. What they should really be saying is, we don't really know. That's the upshot of it all. They don't really know. Now another question you could ask is, do oil pastels go bad? Well, yes they do. You can answer that. They do go bad. But in what way they go bad is yet again another head scratcher. They don't go rotten. They don't deteriorate and shrivel up. But they can. Now, they don't do that on their own. They need some help from us. So, whether they go bad or not is all down to environmental conditions. Is all down to your looking after them. So if you're going to be in, say, a hot country or in a hot environment and you don't look after your pastels very well, or you put them near a heater, or you're just in a sunnier climate, they are going to go bad if you don't look after them properly. If you just leave them out on display, if you just leave them anywhere, even in the box, they're going to go bad. But it's not bad. It's bad in the sense that you have contributed to them not being able to perform at their best. So it's not bad. So they could melt. They could have all the oil rise to the surface of the oil pastel, which is when it goes white. They could just dry out and go crumbly. So they have gone bad, but not through no fault of theirs. So technically, there's that word, they don't go bad. But they do. It's a head scratcher, isn't it? So this going out of date, it is only recently that I have come across dates on packets of oil pastels. And it was only very recently when I did the review of the Amazon Basics oil pastels that I saw on the back that it said shelf life for 5 years. I can't recall ever seeing that before. And in all honesty, I don't think that it's on the more expensive type of oil pastel, the better quality oil pastels. So technically, the lower quality may go bad, or they may go out of date. But technically, the more expensive, better quality may not go out of date. Nobody really knows the answer to this question. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what I mean on a couple of packets of oil pastels, and another example where there's actually nothing written on it. So that suggests that that one never goes out of date. But of course it could go bad. But it doesn't go bad on its own, it goes bad with your help. So let's have a look at these oil pastels. There's only a couple. I haven't been through all my oil pastels. Partly I can't be bothered. But I will have a look as I go through them, obviously. It's a lot of oil pastels I've got to look through. And the indication of the date, sometimes it's a date, sometimes it's a statement. Sometimes it'll say shelf life. But of course, you've got to think to yourself, well, it says shelf life, but if I buy them a day before that 5 years is up, Does that mean I've got another 5 years? Well, no, it doesn't. It just means that possibly you could end up buying them a bit cheaper. But if they don't put a production date on there, you're not going to know when that shelf life is up. And I would suspect that's all of a selling ploy, to be honest with you. I would suspect they put shelf life of 5 years on it, don't put production date on it, so you will never ever know when that 5 years is up. You could have them a day before the 5 years is up, keep them for another 5 years, keep using them, they never go bad, you look after them, and you can keep using them. But technically, that shelf life is up, but you don't know when. It's all a bit of a minefield. If they don't put a production date on it and a expiry date on it, you won't know. Just a statement of shelf life of 5 years looks good but means nothing. In the same way that a production date means nothing. If they put production date on there and they don't tell you how long they're meant to last, that means nothing either, does it? An expiry date, if they don't actually say it's an expiry date, then that means nothing either, because you could take it as either. And I'll show you a couple of examples. So you'll have to forgive me, I'm in the middle of an acrylic painting at the moment. But firstly, I'm going to show you the Amazon set. Now, there we have the Amazon set. Now, we know these are fairly new, but after they've been around 5 years or more, we're not going to really know too much. So the pastels in these are pretty good, but you'll see on the back that it says here, shelf life of 5 years. There's no manufacturing date, there's no expiry date, shelf life of 5 years. Now, does that shelf life of 5 years start from the day you bought it, from the day it was manufactured, to the day you actually received it, or today? Who knows? There's nothing on which to base that shelf life of 5 years. And like I said, if you bought it a day before the end of the 5 years, you could presume that it was made yesterday. There's no way of actually knowing. So that's not good. But I'm going to say, if you look after them, they will serve you longer. That's my opinion. So another couple we've got here. These are actually a Culox oil pastel. Okay, it says beginner grade. I think they're a bit better than a beginner grade personally. But on the back here, it also says shelf life for 5 years. But there's also a production date. And it says the 3rd of the 7th, or the 7th of the 3rd, whichever way round you do it, depending on which country you are at, 2024. So if it was the 3rd of July 2024, we know that these are just over a year old and they have a shelf life of 5 years. Then what does that shelf life mean? There's no explanation of that. Now, does that mean they are out of date after 5 years? Well, most people would presume they are, wouldn't they? And I would too. But if they're still being used and they still are able to do what they do, then why would you even worry about that? Of course, the other thing that comes into the fray is light fastness. Now, does that shelf life of 5 years mean that the light fastness ceases to exist after 5 years? But then on the other hand, if you have a box, and I will find one at some point I expect, if you have a box that is light fast, that means they last 100 years. So if they put a shelf life of 5 years on it, it again means nothing, because the light fast part supersedes the shelf life. So there's that one. And again, we've got that same, again with the production date. This is a Culox one again. It says the 18th of the 12th, so it's reading backwards, 2023. So up to date, these are just under 2 years old, and it says a shelf life of 5 years. There needs to be some explanation of what that means. Does that mean they are out of date and can't be used? So therefore, if you received them, you'd be quite within your rights to send them back. But it tells you nothing. Then we have these amazing oil pastels, these amazing soft oil pastels. Don't know if they are amazing, haven't used them yet. But on the back here, all it says is a date. Is that a production date? Is that an expiry date? Is that a shelf life date? Nobody knows. Doesn't explain itself. This one says the 6th of the 1st, 2025. So in theory, they could be out of date on the 6th of the 1st, 2025, 6 months ago, 10 months ago, or they could have actually been made on that date. Nobody knows. It could mean that they lose their light fastness. It could mean that the oil pastels go bad. Technically, nobody really knows. I'm going to say that if oil pastels are still able to be used after 5 years, or whatever the date is on them, you don't have to worry. I've got oil pastels that are a lot older, and they still perform pretty good. Some don't. The cheaper oil pastels are not so good, but I have some Caran d'Ache that I know for certain are probably 10 or 20 years old, and pretty much on the whole they're fantastic. But there's no dates on them. So then we have this Montmartre one, just a random one I picked up. There's nothing on this. They're no better than the Q-locks, not in any degree. But on the writing here, there is not a suggestion of a date, a production date, an expiry date, or a shelf life. So you can only assume that these will last you forever, dependent on going bad. And like I keep saying, going bad is down to you and your treatment of the oil pastel. Then we have the most recent ones to be made. The Lightwish. Right. Now, I'm going to say this. If I'd have bought these a month ago, say, and I kept them in heated conditions or open on my desktop for any amount of time, there would have been some problems with them. That doesn't mean they're out of date, though. It just means I've mistreated them. But on the back here, again, there is nothing in the way of dates, manufacturing dates, production dates, shelf life, expiry, anything. There's nothing on there. So again, you can presume that these will last you forever, because they're not telling you that they won't. And again, these are light fast. Says that somewhere. I think it says it on the website. But these are light fast, and that light fast is going to last you 100 years, I assume. So therefore, they're not going to go out of date, are they? They're only going to be mistreated. I don't understand why people are putting, or these companies are putting, these dates on them, unless there is something in the manufacturing that makes them go bad, and then they can go out of date, because that part is a bit like if you were cooking something, the sugar could rise to the surface, a bit like the oil could rise to the surface after a certain amount of time. But if they don't explain that, then you aren't to know. And certainly if they don't put on whether it's an expiry or a production date, you really are not going to know. So let's have a look at some oil pastels that have gone bad. So I bought this set off eBay once, and it's the Mungyo Gallery soft oil pastels, and this is the first time I've noticed this. there is actually a sticker date there saying the 4th 23. But again, it doesn't say whether that is expiry or production date, or when that should have come off the shelf, and how long it should be on the shelf. There's nothing, there's just this random date saying literally nothing. There's nothing to say what it should be. I mean, technically, I suppose you could say it's out of date on in April 23. But I have much older boxes than this. But I received this, and I'll show you inside. You would say the oil pastels are bad. Most definitely bad. But are they bad? They're a bit scruffy. They've been mistreated. But can they still be used? Well, I've done demonstrations with these, so I know they can be used. These ones that have melted a bit more and obviously lost a lot more oil have gone a bit crumbly. But these ones over here, you know, you can see they're not quite so good, and you get a lot of oil pastels that would look like this in older sets. They seem to be okay. But this is a mistreatment thing. This isn't anything to do with them going in or out of date or even having a shelf life. This is mistreatment. So yes, they have gone bad, but it's only through you making them go bad. And I think that is what you will find with most oil pastels. They will only go bad if you mistreat them, i.e. you don't store them properly. Let's have a look at another set of oil pastels. Put these bad ones away, but they're not bad because they can still be used. And let's have a look at a set of old vintage guitar oil pastels. Now these are new. They haven't ever been opened before. There's no dates. In fact, there's nothing to tell you anything about the oil pastels. But these are from the 70s. And as you can see, there's absolutely no problems with them. These are not going to work like good oil pastels because they aren't good oil pastels. But they will be able to be used. And these are like 50 odd years old. Going bad is obviously a self-made problem. Going out of date, well, it says nothing about them going out of date, so they can't be out of date. And these are one of the cheaper oil pastels, and like I say, they are 50 years old. And then I have a set of Caran d'Ache here. Now you can see from the tin that this Caran d'Ache is old. How old, I don't know. I'm going to say probably 10 plus years old. And I bought these off the internet, and you can see they're in pristine condition. I have had some that have all this white, there's a little tiny bit there, all this white oil stuff come out of them, but that's through looking after them. So whoever had these before me, and I only bought them for spares, obviously looked after them and kept them in a good condition. I mean, look at this leaflet. You can see how old this leaflet is, just from the way it's printed, really. But there's nothing on here about dates or anything like that. So these can be used, and they are in perfect condition. They are a better grade oil pastel, though, having said that. But then the guitar can be used. There's nothing on them about dates. Let's just have a look on the back of this tin. See? Nothing. Nothing on the side, just conforms to whatever standard, and that's about it. So what conclusion can we come up with? I think almost definitely they're not going to go out of date. There's going to be a suggestion they can, but I think that's just to be on the safe side. A bit like a best before date on an item of food. You know you can eat it several months into the future, especially cakes and biscuits. You can eat them quite a bit into the future, but they're not going to be at their very best, and that's probably where the oil pastels lie. Do they go bad? Yes, they do. But that's only because of you and the way you're looking after them. But they're not going out of date. So they can probably be used, I say probably, I'm not the expert, but they can probably be used forever if you look after them. I don't think you're going to have any problems. I think if there is going to be a problem, it will be from the cheaper, more oily type oil pastels. You'll probably lose the oil, they'll go dry, a bit like them Mungyo ones. But again, that's because they haven't been looked after properly. So I don't think you can have any problems with older oil pastels. Look at them. If they're older ones and they're white, they've obviously lost some sort of oiliness about them. But it's not going to be the end of the world. If they've started to melt, that's a different thing altogether. My dog's just come in. Anyway, don't worry about your oil pastels. They don't go out of date. That's my opinion. They can go bad just by you not looking after them. And if you look after them, they can be used for years, even if they have a date on them. I think the dates on them are immaterial because they don't mean nothing. Shelf life of 5 years means nothing because when does the 5 years start? A production date means they were made then, but if there's not an expiry date, that again means nothing. If there's an expiry date without a production date, that again means nothing. If you have both, then maybe look at them. But that's probably on a more cheaper oil pastel. But then if on a more cheaper oil pastel, they're probably not even going to put that on there anyway. So use your oil pastels, just choose them wisely. That's my opinion. Anyway, that's another video done. I hope it made a lot of sense because it's quite an in-depth topic. Go out then. Animals and things, whoever would want to work with them. Anyway, just like to say, whomever, wherever you are, please have a great day, a great week and a great year. From me and Buster down there. And of course be kind, and until the next video, take care. Bye for now.